to share with you my first 100 days of 2012 at Southwestern. So good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for being here. I thought it was very important that we have time to discuss what's been going on these last couple of months. For me, from my perspective, it's been exciting. It's been a time of change, a time of transition, planning, learning a lot. But first, I'd like to tell you that I find this college to be amazing. I thought it was amazing before I got here, and of course it's even more amazing now that I'm here. And this is a fabulous organization, and to be a member of it and to be a leader of this organization, I can't tell you how happy and excited and proud that I am. And I truly do feel that I'm a member of the Southwestern family. And I've landed. And I can say I'm home. And normally when you say you're home, you think about stability and dependability and people that you love and you trust. And I do think that I have a place of stability and that I have people that I trust. And I do feel that I am making friendships that I think will last me for the rest of my life. And I also feel, from my perspective, that these 100 days have had instability and sometimes some real turbulence. Because obviously, as you all know, my very first day on the job, I was greeted with the press to ask some uncomfortable questions. So, what has been my perspective of these 100 days and of these almost 4 months? And I really think there are 3 key things that I wanted to share with you today. And the first is, clearly, this college is trying to rebuild. And one of the first things, obviously, that I observed is that we're trying to rebuild our reputation. And yes, I began my first day, and I began it with the media. And it wasn't in a terribly good way because the errors of our past were spread across the TV channels, the newspapers, the social media sites, and of course the media chatter went even beyond the confines of our South Bay area. Now, obviously, the attention was primarily on Prop R and on procurement issues with contracts with some of the vendors. And, Prop R is important to us, and we all want to see our college improve. We all want to see improved facilities and infrastructure for our students to promote their learning. And we want to see our community proud of what we've done with their dollars. However, I do have to admit that my first days here, I probably saw Prop R as more of a challenge than an opportunity. But we are now in the active process of rebuilding our reputation. And in terms of Prop R, I think that we can say we have turned the corner. We're turning the corner left. Sorry, I just had to add it. But okay, seriously, I would really like to recognize and thank the leadership and the insight of our our business and finance staff, and of our interim Vice President of Business and Financial Affairs, Sian Brombat. And I think most of you in this room are familiar with our very concrete plan of how to turn the corner, and that is the Prop R New Look 2025. So I think most of you are all aware that, we have recognized what we have done in the past. We are in the process of severing any of the contracts where procurement processes were deemed to be questionable. We have developed a strong set of recommendations for ourselves and an action plan that we are following internally with ourselves and our operational duties, as well as with our governing board, as well as out to the community. And so I really believe that we are effectively rebuilding that reputation with ourselves and with our community in terms of Prop R. So where are we at now? We are now in the process of identifying a firm through an RFP selection process to help us update the educational master plan that we have from 2008, and then to update the facilities master plan. And whereas we're going to continue work on the 4 outstanding projects, we're going to relaunch the major building projects next year. So I think that we have taken a challenge, and we've seized that challenge and created an opportunity. And I think that a lot of us have breathed certain sighs of relief because we see where we're going, we know what to do, and we're moving forward. We're taking a situation that really wasn't a good situation, and we're going to make the very best of it, and we are going to not only rebuild our reputation, we're going to speed up our building, and we've taken a vow that we will build out and end our building no later than 2025, a decade earlier than originally planned in 2035, and we'll realize a full decade's use of those facilities. That's important. This is a really big deal for our college, and I want you to know that I will do everything in my power to assure that we will not waver in the way we present ourselves, to our community, that we will be productive, we will be positive, and we will be ethical and transparent in everything that we do. And I want to assure you that not only are we working on correcting the past errors, but we're assuring that the conditions that allowed the errors to occur have also been corrected. So we really want to go to the root of any issue and not just do a sort of surface approach. And I would like to add, it's all of our duties to help rebuild the reputation. It's not just me, it's not just the governing board, it's not just the vice president of business and financial affairs. Every single one of us is an ambassador. And we need to be proud of our college, and we need to be out there proactively rebuilding our reputation in everything that we do. Another very important and predominant theme that I observed and I heard about in the listening forums, and I observed it again from day one, is that we have another challenge here in terms of our systems and our processes. And we have 50 years of glorious history and 50 years of building systems. And not all of those systems mesh. And I quickly found out that a recurring theme that everyone was talking about was they kept kind of blaming it on the computers. It's a little deeper than computers. But we do have a patchwork of different systems that we use in order to accomplish our day-to-day operations that aren't very well integrated. And that does include our technological systems. And then what I also discovered is that this college is incredibly creative. When a system breaks down, we figure out a workaround. Now, our workarounds usually tend to be very unique to what we do, and we don't share them with anyone else. And so we actually exacerbate the extent to which we are not integrated, and we start to become even more separated. I know that part of that challenge is technology, and we do need to improve the way we use our ERP system such that DataTel links us together, and that we really can coop the advantages of integration, the efficiency that we can have rather than the opposite. And that takes time too, but we're on the path. And I want to report to you that we have aggressively launched this first phase of a massive infrastructure improvement. And we're using PropR funds for a lot of that. We've presented this to the SCC. We talked to the governing board about it last night. We are actively moving forward with our infrastructure, and if you read the PropR ballot language, what is predominantly in there? Infrastructure improvements. So we're honoring our taxpayers' intent. We're moving forward with that, and I have to tell you that I was very impressed with Director Ben Seabury and his staff when I did a listening forum with them. You know what? They are very talented. They understand us. They know what we need. Their team, we've added some key elements just recently to that team, including you yourself, Ben. And that team is now really starting to roll out, and you're going to see the rollout. It's going to touch every one of us. You're going to have new systems, you're going to have improved systems, and you're going to have a lot of training. And this is going to be a multi-year process, and we're all going to need to get on board because I heard that you really wanted integrated systems and you wanted efficiency, so we're going to do that. You know, rebuilding isn't just reputation, and it isn't just systems and IT and patching data tell. But the other issue that I heard in terms of rebuilding, and I heard this loud and clear, certainly in all of the listening forums, but I think pretty much every venue that I encountered, particularly in my first 30 days, was a desire to rebuild trust. This is a big issue with this college. And certainly we all know our history, and we're all working through that. And there was a desire expressed that we really want to rebuild trust. Trust in one another, trust in our leaders, trust in our processes, trust at just about every dimension has come to the forefront as I have been walking through these first 100 days with you. So let's talk about trust in one another. We all learned something very important last year when we had a common external threat. And the common external threat was the ACCJC, the Accrediting Commission for Community and Junior Colleges, the undergrad component of WASC. On continued probation, with the college looking at the very real possibility that accreditation might be removed, we coalesced, became a team, united, overcame a lot of differences, worked like dogs, and were able to address those 10 recommendations to the satisfaction of the visiting team and the commission itself, such that all sanctions were removed, including any follow-up visits. That is amazing. We taught ourselves a lesson that we can pull together, and we did that with that common external threat. We know we can do it. But what I also heard in the listening forums and have observed was a criticism that one of our challenges is a silo mentality, and that we tend to get into our own little realm of operations, and we tend to kind of hunker down, do our own thing, and not venture out. And often when there are problems, we get even tighter within our silo, and that is often accompanied with a distrust of others because we're not really participating with others. And sometimes that distrust devolves into a temptation to even discredit others. Both of those actions of distrust and that sort of discrediting, that's very divisive. And we have to work against that temptation to go into our silos. Because just as often as I heard there's a challenge that we go into our silos, I clearly heard that there's a desire to break down the walls and not just integrate systems, but to really feel that we are an integrated community of employees here at Southwestern. So I also heard that breaking down the silos begins with leadership, and it begins at the top. And I took that as a personal cry to me and to the governing board that we need to be examples, that we need to exemplify inclusive behavior, that we need to set the tone, and that we need to show people how you break down those barriers of silos. So I want to pledge to you my commitment that everything that I do, that I will do it in an open and inclusive, a thoughtful manner that values the interconnectedness we have in serving our students and our community. And I need your commitment to do the same. We all have to be in this together. And, you know, we have to see this, again, a challenge, but it's an opportunity. And part of the opportunity is how you learn to value one another is to learn what one another does. We need to actually take the time to understand how each of us contributes to what this college is, because the sum is greater than the total of the parts, and you won't really understand that if you stay bunkered down in your silo. So I encourage you personally to accept the task to learn what do the faculty do? What do the classified professionals do? What's going on in the one-stop center? What's happening in the cafeteria? What does that manager do? What is their job, and to value what they do? We need to break down the distrust, and you need to be able to respect and value what each of us brings to the table at this college. I think that that should be a goal. I think that staff and professional development activities need to help us with that goal. And I think that every single one of our shared governance committees also needs to adopt that as a goal, that we honor the interconnectedness that we have and that we value what each of us does and that we continually have moments where we can reflect on that and learn from one another. You know, we're in a time of scarcity and we need to resist the temptation in times of scarcity to retreat into your silo, point fingers at those outside and say it's your fault. We need to resist that because that's the temptation. So each of us need to pledge to be leaders, individual leaders, that openly and honestly look at ourselves first and ask, what can I do to change that will help the college? Not just what can I do that will help me, but what can I do that will be a positive change that can help the college? That, you know, that mentality, once it starts, it can create a virtuous cycle, and it can build. And that's the type of behaviors that we want to encourage as we're trying to rebuild trust amongst ourselves. You know, I think that that really should lead us to discussing what was clearly identified as the #1 challenge. Without a doubt, the #1 challenge identified in listening forums and in every other venue has been the budget. We have been experiencing severe budget shortfalls. There's no secret about that. A lot of you are on the budget committee. Many of you were at the budget forums today. A lot of you are very well informed about what's happening to your own programs, to this college, to colleges throughout the state. Clearly, California is not demonstrating an economic recovery that's so rosy that we think that everything's going to go back to the way it used to be. In fact, we're being told, no, it's not. The new normal is one of more change, more budget uncertainties, and we're going to need to accept that. We're going to need to quit resisting it and blaming. We're going to need to proactively look at how we can be more informed about what our budget realities are and what we can do together to address them. And I want to stress what we can do together. In a nutshell, what are we trying to do right now? You know, we're trying to correct a $5.5 million shortfall that we experienced this year. $5.5 million out of our ongoing funds permanently. We've adopted, and we're proposing, I should say that, we're proposing and we are looking to adopt a solution. The solution would find half, 2.5 million plus, in reserves, part-time overload savings, supply and other general fund savings, but the other half, 2.5 million, the proposal is that it comes from salary reduction with a 5% reduction across the board. And that is the proposal that came from the big table. And some of you have already heard this, but at the risk of being redundant, I'm going to say it again. I have to thank every person, and there were a lot of people, I believe over 30, sitting at the big table representing all constituencies in terms of employee constituencies. And that's a really difficult environment because we all have different interests, and to reach a consensus and a difficult consensus where you're actually agreeing to a salary reduction, that's difficult. I want you to know that we're being looked at, not just by the South Bay community, but we're being looked at by other colleges. And the word is out that there's a tentative agreement that we would all uniformly, we're looking to potentially adopt a 5% reduction. And there are a lot of colleges that are looking at us as being phenomenal. To be able to reach that decision, to preserve the value of employment integrity, keeping our people employed, and to resist the temptation to break into silos and separate solutions that may lead to folks losing their jobs, people are looking very closely at us, and they're wondering, can we really ratify that? Can we really do what our leaders have asked us to do? And You know, that's precarious. Sacrificing is never easy. Being a leader and taking a hard decision, it's not easy. But we've agreed that our value is preserving jobs. And we've agreed that this is, not only is it a value, it's actually the first value in our list. So, I am hoping that we can look very carefully at what our leaders have proposed, that we can understand that they've done everything to preserve our values, which also means keeping the cuts as far away from the classroom as possible, and that we can honor the tough decisions that they have taken. I have to tell you, I think it's one of the defining moments of our history right now. It really, truly is. What we do during this ratification period and how we handle it is going to define who we are as a college and as a community college. Because we have the opportunity to stand tall and to engage in open, courageous conversations about the tough decisions to make sure that all questions are answered, all input is there, and that we allow people to vent, but we also bring the conversation back and we talk about why our leaders have taken that decision. Whatever happens, we're going to work together as a team to move this college forward. That's my pledge to you. But I do hope that we can show ourselves, we can show our South Bay community, and we can show the community colleges of California that we're leaders and that we know how to act as a unit, that we know how to, together, not in silos and pointing fingers at one another, but together we know how to address the most critical problems that we face. You know, I think that we ought to say to one another, a 5% cut also means the glass is 95% full. There's always a way to look at things in a manner that reminds us this can still be a good thing. It's not the worst scenario that we have. And finally, I would say, you know, we're struggling to trust one another. Be brave. Be brave. Take a chance and trust. Trust your leaders. Trust one another. You know, give trust a chance. We're all being very wary right now. Can we trust one another? You're not going to know until you try. And we need to offer ourselves that opportunity to trust one another. You know, I think that this is again, how do we move our culture forward? We have to be brave. We have to be courageous. We have to give trust a chance right now. And I really hope that we can, every one of you in this room, everyone that is watching, please, I would really urge you, make that a personal goal, that you are going to demonstrate in what you do to everyone that you work with in this college, that you do trust and that you will trust. That you will trust them, you will trust your leaders, that you will trust yourself, that we'll trust one another. The last thing I'd like to add, because there are just a lot of things I could tell you about my first 100 days, but I would like to throw something out there. As the only employee of the governing board, I would like to share with you my observance of the governing board. Now, you know from your accreditation experience that the #1 reason for sanctions right now is governance issues. And a lot of those governance issues are centered with governing boards. And I have seen a lot of governing boards. I've worked with many trustees, and I've certainly heard all sorts of stories up and down the state about different boards. I want to assure you that you have a team. You have 5 elected officials and your student trustee. And those 6 individuals really are working as a team, even though they do not always agree. They are working as a team, and I would like you to notice the example that they are setting. If you have come to a governing board meeting on a regular basis, you know that they can have open, honest dialogue, that they are respectful of one another and of differences of opinions, and when they take a decision, they are implementing it as a whole. They support it unanimously, even if they didn't all unanimously vote for it. They'll support the majority vote, and they move together as a whole. And that is an example that they are sending to us. And I'm very proud as the board's liaison between them and between you that they are setting that example, that I can tell you truthfully and honestly that what they are doing is head and shoulders above what many boards do. They are respectful. They are serious. They do want this college to advance. Their hearts are in the right place, and they really are being noticed positively by the community and by the state as well. So I want you to know that part of what's been important for me to observe in my position in these first 100 days is what our leaders at the very top, our governing board, are doing. I feel confident in their leadership, and I really would like to tell you that it has been a pleasure to work closely with President Norma Hernandez and all of the other governing board members, Vice President Peraza, certainly Trustees Roche, Nader, Valladolid, and of course our student trustee, Claudia Duran. But you know, I could go on for a lot more time because the listening forums, literally, it's been fascinating, the information that I have gleaned in these 22 forums. And I am working very carefully and finalizing my personal goals and strategies, and what I'm doing is I'm aligning them with the board's institutional goals, our educational master plan, and our strategic plan. And I'm going to present these to the board in a presentation at the meeting on May 9th. So I obviously will give that to the community at large, but I'm going to present that to the board formally on the 9th. But what I'd like to know is what's been your perception of the first 100 days of 2012. And what I'd like to know is what would you like to tell me about these first 100 days together. It's really important for me to hear you, and I would like to my first 100